You have goals, real ones, not vague wishes, actual visions of what your life is supposed to look like. You know what you want to build, who you want to become, what kind of work you want to do. And somewhere in your mind, you carry this image of yourself. Successful, driven, doing the things that matter. But then the day starts, and somehow none of it happens. You sit down with every intention of working. And 2 hours later, you've watched videos, scrolled through other people's highlights, reorganized something that didn't need reorganizing, and told yourself you'll start properly tomorrow. And the worst part isn't even the lost time. The worst part is that you saw it happening. You watched yourself do it. You knew in real time that you were avoiding what you needed to do. And you did it anyway. That gap between who you believe you are and what you're actually doing, that's what's eating at you. That's the conflict you can't ignore. And if you felt that, this is for you, because here's the thing most people don't say out loud. You're not lazy in the way the world defines lazy. You're not someone without ambition. You have more ambition than most people around you. You think about your goals constantly. You feel the urgency. You know what's at stake. And yet your actions don't reflect any of that. That contradiction is exhausting. And it doesn't make sense until you understand what's actually happening inside your brain. Let's start with the pattern, because it's not random. It repeats. Every single day, it repeats in almost exactly the same way. You wake up with intention. Today is different. Today, you're going to get things done. You have a plan, or at least a feeling of readiness. And then something small interrupts the momentum. Maybe you check your phone before you start. Maybe you tell yourself you need coffee first, or 5 more minutes, or just to respond to one thing. And before you've done any real work, an hour is gone. So you regroup. You remind yourself of the goal. You feel a fresh wave of motivation. You're going to start right after this one video, after this one article, after you finish this one thing that isn't the thing. And the cycle repeats. Not once, not twice, all day. Same intentions, same delays, same guilt at the end. And the brutal part is, you're aware of it. You see the loop while you're in it. And somehow that awareness alone isn't enough to break it. That's the first thing you need to understand. Awareness without action is not progress. It's just a more informed version of being stuck. Now here's where most people get it wrong. They call it laziness. They think the solution is to just try harder, want it more, be tougher. But that's not what's happening here. Laziness describes a lack of desire, a lack of caring. That is not you. You care deeply. You want it badly. What you're experiencing isn't laziness. It's resistance. And resistance is something entirely different. What looks like laziness on the outside is, on the inside, a combination of mental resistance, emotional avoidance, and cognitive overload. Your brain isn't failing to care. It's actively working to protect you from discomfort. Every time you approach a meaningful task, something that matters, something with stakes, your nervous system registers threat. Not physical danger, but the discomfort of uncertainty, of effort, of possibly failing at something you actually care about. And so it steers you toward relief, toward the easier thing, toward comfort, not because you're weak, because that's what brains do when they haven't been trained to tolerate the friction of meaningful work. To understand this fully, you need to understand the two systems that are constantly at war inside you. The first system is ancient. It wants immediate comfort. It wants safety, familiarity, low effort, quick reward. The second system is the part of you that thinks long-term, that imagines the future, that holds your ambitions, your values, your vision for who you want to be. These two systems are in constant conflict, and in the absence of deliberate training, the first system wins almost every time, not because your ambitions don't matter, but because the ancient brain is faster, louder, and better practiced. Then there's dopamine. Most people think dopamine is about pleasure. It's actually about anticipation, about the prediction of reward. And here's the problem. When you scroll, when you watch, when you consume, you get fast, frequent dopamine hits. Small rewards, delivered rapidly. Your brain learns that pattern. It starts to expect it. So when you sit down to do real work, slow, difficult, uncertain work where the reward might come weeks or months later, your brain compares that to what it's used to, and it resists, not out of laziness, out of conditioning. You've accidentally trained yourself to prefer the fast lane. And now the slow lane, the one that leads somewhere real, feels unbearable by comparison. And here's where ambition becomes its own trap. You'd think that wanting more would make it easier to act. But for people like you, it often does the opposite, because the higher your standards, the more pressure you feel every time you sit down to work. The task isn't just a task, it's a test of whether you're really who you think you are. And that pressure, that weight of expectation, makes starting feel even more threatening. So you avoid, not because you don't care about the outcome, because you care too much. The more something matters to you, the harder it is to begin. That's the paradox, and it keeps some of the most capable people permanently stuck. Underneath all of it, there's a fear most people never say out loud. A fear of failure, yes, but also, and this one is harder to admit, a fear of success. Because success means change. It means responsibility. It means stepping fully into a version of yourself that can't hide behind potential anymore. Right now, as long as you haven't really tried, you can still tell yourself the story. If I really committed, I could do it. That story protects you. It keeps your self-image intact. But the moment you try, fully, seriously, you risk finding out the truth. And that is terrifying. So procrastination isn't just avoidance of work. It's protection of identity. But there is a cost to staying in that safe place, and it compounds. Every day you don't act, you send yourself a message. The message is, you can't trust yourself. And that message stacks. Over weeks, over months, over years, you build a self-image of someone who doesn't follow through, someone who wants but doesn't do. And that identity becomes its own trap, because eventually you stop believing change is possible. Not because it isn't, because you've given yourself too much evidence to the contrary. Think about who you could become if you acted consistently on your intentions for the next 12 months. Now think about who you're becoming by not doing that. That's not a hypothetical. That's a real fork in the road you're standing at right now. Here's the myth that keeps most people from moving forward. The belief that you need to feel motivated before you start, that the right mood, the right moment, the right level of energy needs to show up before you can begin. That is backwards. Motivation is not the ignition. Action is. Motivation follows movement. You don't wait until you feel like working out to go to the gym. You go. And 10 minutes in, you feel like training. The same is true for every meaningful task. You start before you're ready. You begin before it feels right. And the feeling catches up once the momentum builds. Waiting for motivation is waiting for something that only shows up after you've already started. What's actually happening when you don't act is a loop your brain has rehearsed so many times it runs automatically. You form an intention. Then hesitation appears. You find a distraction. The guilt comes in. You reset your intention. And then it starts again. Every time you complete that loop without breaking it, you strengthen it. Your brain gets better at hesitating, more skilled at finding the distraction, more practiced at the guilt without the change. Repetition builds behavior. And you've been repeating the wrong pattern, so now you understand the mechanism. The question is what you do with that understanding, because information alone changes nothing. You've had the realizations before. You've felt the clarity before. And it faded. So this time, the shift isn't about understanding more clearly. It's about what you do in the next hour. You interrupt the pattern with the smallest possible action, not the full task, not the complete vision. One thing. 5 minutes, one step forward, that's it. Because the goal right now is not to finish. The goal is to begin. 1 page, 1 paragraph, 1 email, 1 set, 5 minutes of the thing. That's where transformation actually starts. Not in the planning, not in the motivation, in the microscopic act of beginning. And as you stack those beginnings, something starts to shift. You begin to rebuild the thing you've slowly eroded. Trust in yourself. Self-trust is not built through grand declarations, it's built through small promises kept. Every time you say you'll do 5 minutes and you do 5 minutes, you become slightly more trustworthy to yourself. Over time, that compounds. You start to believe your own word. And from that belief, a new identity becomes possible. Not quote 0, but quote 1. Your environment matters more than your willpower. Stop relying on motivation and discipline alone. Start designing conditions where the right behavior is easier than the wrong one. Remove the distractions before you sit down. Put your phone in another room. Close the tabs. Make starting the path of least resistance. Make avoiding harder than doing. This is not weakness. This is intelligence. Every high performer in the world uses their environment as a tool because willpower is finite, structure is not. And finally, act like the person you want to become before you feel like that person. Stop waiting to feel disciplined. Start asking, what does a disciplined person do today? Then do that. Identity doesn't precede behavior. Behavior builds identity. Act your way into a new self-image. Repeat it. Reinforce it. Let the evidence accumulate until the story you tell about yourself is finally accurate. You're not broken. You're not lazy. You're not someone who isn't capable of this. You're someone who has been running a pattern that doesn't serve you. And patterns can be changed. You now understand why you've been stuck. You understand the fear, the loop, the myth, the mechanism. But that understanding means nothing if you sit with it and do nothing. You don't need more clarity. You don't need a better plan. You don't need to feel ready. You need to move. Right now. Not after this. Not tomorrow morning. Now. The version of you that you keep imagining. That person didn't wait for the perfect moment. That person got tired of waiting and started anyway. That person is you, minus the delay. Stop delaying. You already know enough. You've always known enough. What you need now is the one thing no one can give you, the decision to begin. Make it today, not later, now.